Hey, John, can you start just by sort of summing up the importance of some variety in the blitz package and sort of, Coach Leno was talking about disrupting the offense with that. Just give me a little bit on your philosophy of that.
Well, I think that people mistake the aspect of a pressure defense to a blitzing defense. So I think that's first and foremost. I mean, we have a pressure package. We don't sell the ranch on every snap. You know, we could bring 5 guys. You know, we could make a 5-man appearance, come from one side and only bring 3. So I mean, those aspects come into play based on offensive alignments and pre-snap and post-snap reads to the quarterbacks. I mean, we want to create problems for the front 5 and never let the quarterback set his feet in the passing game. But obviously, you have to evolve to what's going on in college football today with the spread and the pistol and all those things come into play. So you gotta pick and choose and be a little bit smarter because they're moving their checkers and trying to deceive your aspect of what you want to do, and then add the hurry up to it. So I look at our defense as a pressure aspect to put some pressure on them and not just sit back and wait for them to see what happens. I make them try to make things happen.
Does opening up the season, John, with teams like BYU and Oregon, that they're known for such innovative styles, does that get your juices flowing in terms of getting psyched up to face that kind of thing?
Well, I mean, obviously, you know, the passion for the game of football and loving the coach is what gets my juices flowing, and then taking these young men and prepare them to go play those teams, you know, no matter what the type of offense is. But that's a good question based on the evolution and where we're going offensively, speed factor, so on and so forth. So, you know, once you get through the fundamental aspects and the reteaching from spring ball, and then, you know, 2 weeks down the road, now here's what we got to prepare for.
How far along do you think your guys are from the spring in kind of understanding what your expectations are?
Well, I think they understand that part of it. I think that, you know, and like I've told them, you know, in the couple weeks before we went to spring ball, you know, getting them accustomed to the package. The big thing is concepts. What concepts? Fundamentals first, concepts second. So that part, and then by the last 2 weeks of spring ball, our guys understood exactly why we do what we do based on formation, based on splits, based on backfield sets, so on and so forth. So they got comfortable with it. And if there are things that they can't handle or cover the concept, then we'll just adapt and adjust to it.
Are there guys on this defense specifically that you just can't wait to see do what you want them to do? That you just think are going to be special players that way?
I don't get into saying this guy's going to be this or this guy's going to be that. I like to just take them all because, again, whether a guy's a freshman or a fifth-year guy, you want to see them grow and be the best football player they could possibly be.
Did you feel like you inherited a defense that's prepared to sort of take your new scheme and go with it and really succeed right away?
I think that, again, I go back to, you know, each individual is a little bit different. I mean, I had to learn them, they had to learn me. I think you just go from there, and then as time goes on, you can see smiles on certain guys' faces, and bang, 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 and they really like what you do. And then as time goes on, you go, hey, based on what they're doing, what do you think? And those relationships and that aspect of those guys as they grow to what they feel they can do better, it helps you as a coach.
Guys learn things at a different speed. Have you
Right.
had 2 or 3 guys that really kind of clicked and picked it up that you can kind of rely on to kind of maybe teach some of the other guys?
Well, I think obviously a veteran player, a guy that has played, you know, multiple games. You know, you can't really rely on a freshman that's only played 12 games. But a guy that's been around and seen if you're up front, all the different blocking schemes that possibly can happen to you, or a linebacker that's been around based on formations and backfield sets, and then obviously your secondary players that, you know, understand splits and this and that, they pick it up a lot faster. But, you know, it's just like anything else. You crawl before you walk before you run.
In your pressure packages, how often will corners be in one-on-one situations, and what's your kind of evaluation of these corners and how they can handle that?
Well, I think that, I mean, it all depends on whether we're going to play man or play zone. That comes into play based on your matchups. So, you know, the more, you can say what you want, that you're playing zone, but if there's one guy, what does it become? You're playing man. So, I mean, those things every day, you just got to keep working with them.
Coach, how's your transition been getting here, getting part of a new football family per se, and how's everything going with the new coaches as well?
Well, I mean, I enjoy the guys on the staff. obviously I'm a well-traveled guy, so that part doesn't really, comes into play. I mean, obviously it's a tough thing on your family, my wife and my kids first and foremost, but I mean, as the transition goes, but I mean, there's a lot of great guys here, excellent guys I coach with, and you just, every day, you learn more and more about each other.
Last year, Virginia had 13 sacks. Your NC State team had 33 sacks. 2 years ago, 20 for Virginia, 40 for NC State. Is there anything close to a target number? What is good in terms of sacks? And you mentioned the difference between sacks and pressure and whatever.
No, I just meant between blitz. When you guys say, some people say blitz, that means you're playing zero across the board and here we come. There's only 2 schools I ever coached at where you could do that every snap. And all those guys went on to play in the National Football League. So, I mean, that's just the way it is. But, Doug, you go into a game and, obviously the pressure aspect, you want to get as many sacks as you can, but you also want to get tackles for losses too. So, I mean, that's why you attack and that's why you pressure. You want to make offense have negative plays, so it is a 2nd down and long situation, So it is a 3rd down and long situation. But to say, here's your number, I mean, I don't really look at that aspect of it.
John,
It's just how you prepare for it.
other than Urban and David Dean, I don't think there's a defensive tackle on the roster who's been in a game. And how much can you do in training camp to prepare a guy for what he's going to face in the fall, or do they just have to learn?
I mean, that's a good question. I mean, obviously at any position, but in the trenches, I mean, because it happens so fast, I mean, you got to try and give them as many looks as you can and as many scrimmage plays as you can. Because again, when that ball's snapped, they're getting popped pretty good. So I mean, all those things come into play, and you got to get them comfortable with just the girth that's in front of them, and then how they got to attack it. But you're right. I mean, there's going to be a numerous bunch of guys that we're going to go through there and see who can do what, and again, you got to be patient in that aspect. I mean, no matter what, I don't care who you are, until you play a whole season, you haven't seen everything.
Talk about your defensive ends and what potential you see in those guys.
When you're talking about Jake and Eli and Michael Moore and Trent Corn, I mean, obviously, those guys, I mean, everybody's a little bit different in their size, speed, and how they play ball, so, I mean, I'm just excited about the aspect of those guys coming to practice every day, and, they do a great job, and they're learning well, and the more pressure we get on the quarterback with those 4 guys, the happier I'll be.
How big would you like to see Eli get?
I mean, that's a loaded question, Doug. I mean, you know that. I mean, it's what his body type is to where he can go and how big he can get.
Did you think he was too light in the spring when you first saw him, or was he already on the way to where you wanted him to be?
Well, I mean, again, his body, whatever he can carry and still be somebody to reckon with is what you want out of that position and what he can do. I mean, every guy's built different. Everybody, so whatever he can. However big he can get, but you don't want him to get too big. You just want him to make sure he can beat that offensive tackle he's lined up on and not get blown up by that offensive tackle.
You have more guys with experience there at that end position than you do inside. Would you play any of those end guys like a small package, or are they?
I don't have a small package, but I'm saying in our multiple defense, our packages, we call our sub packages, there's a lot of guys that can move around where you get more of a speed team on the field. So. Your linebackers can play defensive end, your ends can play inside, so on and so forth. And again, we just got to mix and match as time goes on, see what guys can do to help you be successful. I did a lot of that at Georgia Tech.
How do you go about preparing the guys for the rules changes as it relates to, the leading with the crown of the helmet, the injections and that kind of thing? What do you work on with those guys to try and get them ready for it?
Well, if you don't coach that, then you shouldn't have a problem with that. I mean, I think the biggest thing that comes into play is the old days of being a true headhunter, and then some of these things that, as Doug Rhodes came in to see us the other day and showed us the film clips from teams all over the country, I mean, to me, those guys are just plain headhunters. I mean, that's what they're going for. But if you teach basic fundamentals and how to fit and not leave it to crown your head, the old time of spearing and don't get into, trying to do that, I think you'll be fine. I mean, but again, the concussion thing and so on and so forth comes into play, but there's certain guys that's how they played, and that's how they grew up, and that's what you want. But as long as you don't get into, hey, we're going to headhunt today, we're going to smash them in the mouth and all that, just coach football, basic fundamentals and technique, you shouldn't have to worry about that.
John, you talked about your defensive ends, but can you talk about your apprentice Jake Snyder in particular?
Jake's a very smart guy in a lot of aspects. You know, he's got tremendous leadership qualities. Obviously, in spring ball, we only had him for Fridays and Saturdays for practice. But, I mean, when he's out there, he's a force to be reckoned with. Everybody looks up to him, especially up in the front. And he grasps things a lot faster than a lot of other guys do. You know, so, I mean, I'm looking for big things out of Jake.
John, Corny is